By the time Amina saw the handprint in the dust, she had already married a murderer. 3 days earlier, she had been draped in fine kente cloth, its vibrant colors glowing under the sun. Her aunties sang praise songs, their voices weaving blessings into the air. Cousins danced with wild, joyous abandon, their feet pounding rhythms of hope. Elders nodded in solemn approval, their expressions heavy with pride. Everyone said she was lucky, chosen by Chief Kwame himself, a rare honor, a sign of favor, a lifeline. But beneath her painted smile, unease coiled tight. She hadn't chosen this life. It had been handed to her like an edict. Her mother had whispered that beauty was a blessing, that her marriage would lift the whole family. Her father had gripped his walking stick and said nothing, his silence an acceptance of the chief's offer. What else could they do? The rains had failed. The soil had turned to dust. Hunger had crept into their bones. To them, the chief's proposal was salvation. To Amina, it felt like a trap. She had tried to believe in the stories her aunties told, that she was special, chosen for her grace and charm. She had dared to hope this union might bring her more than survival, perhaps even a voice. But in a world where men like Chief Kwame ruled unchallenged, hope was fragile, easily broken. Deep down, she feared the truth. Her body was the price, and her silence the condition. Now she stood alone among the ancient baobab trees. The branches clawed at the sky, their shadows long and spindly against the cracked earth. In her palm, a small iron key pressed into her skin, its edges sharp and foreign. She turned it over, its weight more confusing than comforting. "You will find peace here," Chief Kwame had said that morning, his voice thick with authority. His fingers had gripped her shoulder, leaving bruises hidden beneath her clothes. His smile was sharp, unkind, a warning disguised as reassurance. "I will visit when the moon is full." That was all he'd offered before leaving her in silence. But silence, Amina realized, wasn't the absence of sound. It was the hollow echo of unspoken fears, the weight of solitude pressing against her chest. And then there was the handprint. She saw it in the dust near her feet, small, deliberate, out of place, too small to be his. Its edges blurred by the wind, but unmistakable, as if it had been left for her to find. A chill crept up her spine. She crouched, her fingers hovering above the imprint, afraid to touch it. Who had been here? And why? The key grew heavier in her palm as a distant sound rustled through the trees. She stood quickly, her heart pounding against her ribs. The question swirled, unanswered, as the shadows deepened around her. Then he had turned, mounted his black stallion, and left without looking back. Amina hesitated at the hut's doorway. It creaked as it opened, hinges made of braided reeds straining like they hadn't moved in years. Inside, the air was stale. Dust floated in sunbeams like tiny ghosts. Nothing was welcoming about that place. Her throat tightened. She whispered to herself, "This cannot be right." Amina stepped into the hut. The air inside was wrong. It smelled of blood, of smoke, of silence too deep. A stool scarred with knife marks. A mat was stained dark. A clay pot with crusted edges. Dried blood? Her breath caught. "This cannot be right," she whispered. No one answered. Only wind, only shadows. That first night, she didn't sleep. Not really. She huddled beneath a thin blanket that smelled of old sweat and smoke, her eyes darting at every sound. The cry of an owl, the distant laugh of a hyena. Her heart pounded with every rustle outside. When she finally drifted off, she dreamed of red earth swallowing her whole, of screaming without sound. Eyes were watching her from the trees. Morning came, gray and sullen. When she stepped outside, Her blood ran cold. There, in the dust, just beyond the door, was a handprint. A perfect one, not hers, pressed into the earth while she had been asleep. And that was just the beginning. Days passed. Chief Kwame visited like a warden, his gaze cold, his touches colder. "You're changing," he told her once, tracing her cheek. "The bush strips away village pride." One bright morning, as she collected firewood, she saw it hanging from a baobab, a fertility doll, face shattered, red string tied around its neck. "Don't touch that." An old woman stepped out from the trees, face mapped by scars, eyes sharp as broken glass. "It's a warning," she said. "I gave that doll to Zuri too." Amina froze. Zuri? The last wife, before they found pieces of her scattered in the grasslands. Amina's knees buckled. "Pieces?" The chief collects beautiful things, but when they stop obeying, he breaks them. Amina whirled around to face an elderly woman, her face a map of tribal scarification, her eyes sharp as flint beneath her grey-wrapped head. "What is it?" Amina asked, her voice barely audible. "A warning," the woman replied. "I am Mekena. I put the same doll out for Zuri. She didn't listen either." "Zuri?" The name sent a chill through Amina's body. The chief's previous wife, before they found pieces of her scattered across the grasslands. Amina's knees buckled. "Pieces?" The village elders called it a lion attack, but lions don't dismember their prey so deliberately. Makena's eyes held Amina's. That night, a thunderstorm raged across the savannah. Lightning illuminated the hut in strobing flashes, thunder rattling the thatched roof. Unable to sleep, Amina paced the small space, reciting protective prayers her grandmother had taught her. A particularly violent crack shook the hut, and Amina stumbled, her foot crashing through the packed earth floor. Pain shot up her leg as sharp stones tore into her skin. Cursing, she pulled her foot free, then froze. In the jagged hole, something gleamed. Not stone or root, but metal. Ignoring the pain, Amina dug into the surrounding earth. Hidden in the ground was a calabash gourd, sealed with wax. She broke it open with a cooking stone, her heart hammering against her ribs. "If you read this, you're next. Kwame kills. He hides gold, desecrates sacred lands. There were others, 3 before me, behind the chief's sleeping quarters, trophies, hair, skin, names erased. Also inside the calabash were 3 small oilcloth bundles. Amina unwrapped them with trembling fingers. The first contained a shard of calabash with a poem etched in charcoal. "He gifts you beads and names it love, but love does not bruise or bury." The second bundle held a faded strip of fabric, a child's wrap, with a lullaby embroidered in delicate thread. That night, Amina swore she heard the melody on the wind, as if a mother's voice was still echoing from some unseen place. The final bundle was a brittle piece of paper, torn at the edges, with a sketch drawn in rough strokes. It showed shelves built into a round chamber, each lined with objects, bones, beads, rings, a braid of hair. In the corner, a figure loomed, the chief, watching. At the bottom was a single word in trembling script: "Run." Amina's throat tightened. These women had tried to leave a record. They hadn't all died quietly. Their fear and defiance were folded into each item, stitched into each clue, left like offerings for the next to find. She wasn't just reading Zuri's story now. She was holding the last words of those who had come before. The calabash also held a map, one location circled in red. "The truth is buried here." With shaking hands, Amina unfolded the bark. Zuri's words were scratched in charcoal, her message desperate. If you read this, you are his new wife, and you are in danger. The message continued. Kwame is not the chief he pretends to be. The timber harvesting is just a cover. The real wealth comes from what they find when they clear the ancient forests. Gold dust, sacred artifacts they sell to foreign traders. But that's not the worst of it. Zuri's writing became more frantic. There have been others before me. At least 3 wives, all sent to this hut. None ever returned to the compound. There is a secret chamber beneath the chief's sleeping quarters. Sealed, always sealed. I found the entrance once. Inside are trophies, beads, locks of hair, ritual scarification patterns cut from women's skin. The message ended abruptly as if Zuri had been interrupted. Amina sat frozen, the bark trembling in her hands. The storm outside seemed distant compared to the tempest in her mind. She wasn't just trapped, she was next in a line of women who had disappeared. The pouch also contained a map drawn on animal hide, marked with locations throughout the forest. One spot was circled in red ochre with a note, "The truth is buried here." Then a sudden pounding at the door made Amina jump, dropping the bark. Through the window, she could see the chief's entourage, torches flickering through the rain. "Amina, open this door." His voice was sharp with anger. She shoved the calabash and its contents under her sleeping mat, quickly smoothing the disturbed earth. Blood from her injured leg smeared across the floor. When she opened the door, Chief Kwame stood there, rain dripping from his elaborate headdress. His eyes took in her disheveled appearance, the blood on her leg, the disarray of the hut. "What happened here?" he demanded, stepping inside. "I fell," Amina said, gesturing to her leg. "The storm frightened me." His eyes narrowed, scanning the room. "You've been busy." "Just trying to make this place habitable," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. The chief moved to the small fire pit, warming his hands. "The village drummer sent interesting news today. Someone mentioned you'd been asking questions about Zuri." Amina's mouth went dry. "I was curious. You never mentioned her." "Because she's not important," he snapped, then immediately softened his tone. "The past is the past, Amina. Zuri was troubled. The ancestral spirits possessed her mind. She imagined conspiracies where there were none." "Like what?" His smile was cold. "She had delusions about my trading business, about other wives. She even claimed I was keeping her prisoner here." He laughed, the sound devoid of humor. "Spirit possession is a terrible thing." Amina forced herself to step closer to him, to place a hand on his arm. "I am not Zuri. I trust you, my husband." The lie tasted like ash in her mouth, but the chief seemed to relax slightly. "Good, because trust is everything in a marriage." He cupped her face in his hand, his thumb pressing against her cheekbone hard enough to hurt. "I would hate to lose faith in you, Amina." After he left, promising to return when the moon was full, Amina collapsed on her sleeping mat, her body shaking with silent sobs. The chief's threat hung in the air like poison. At dawn, she packed a small gourd with Zuri's evidence and the few possessions she couldn't bear to leave behind. The storm had passed, leaving the savannah glistening and the path muddy. But Amina didn't care. She had to find Makena, had to understand the map Zuri had left. The village was eerily quiet when she arrived, doors closed, windows shuttered. Only Makena sat outside her small hut, grinding millet as if waiting. "You found it," the old woman said, not a question. "How did you know?" "Because you have the same look Zuri had, the look of someone who has seen behind the mask." Makena gestured for Amina to follow her inside. They're watching the hut, the chief's warriors. They'll report that you came here. Inside, a young man stood by the window, peering through a crack in the wooden shutters. He turned when they entered, his face tense, tribal marks identifying him as from a different clan. "This is my grandson, Jabari," Makena said. "He helped Zuri map the sites." "The burial grounds," Jabari said bluntly. "That's what she found, not just artifacts or gold. The timber harvesting uncovers ancestral graves, old ones from before our grandparents' time. The sacred burial grounds are valuable to foreign collectors, but they're also in the way of the gold mining." "And Zuri?" Amina asked, though she already suspected the answer. "She found more recent graves too," Jabari replied, his voice dropping. "Behind the hut, 3 of them." Amina's blood turned to ice. "The other wives," Makena nodded grimly. "Zuri documented everything with drawings and collected proof. She was going to expose him to the Council of Elders, but someone in the village betrayed her, told the chief what she was planning. "We need to get you away from here," Jabari said urgently. "Now that you've been seen coming to us, you're in immediate danger." "But where can I go? He will find me." "Not if he believes you're already dead," Makena said, her eyes glinting. "The savannah can keep secrets too." They formulated a plan. Amina would fake her own death, a lion attack like Zuri's, but one where no body would be found. The seasonal river flooding would provide the perfect cover. Meanwhile, Jabari would take Zuri's evidence to the regional tribal council in the neighboring territory. As they prepared to leave, the sound of war drums approached. Through the window, Amina saw the chief's warriors, spears and shields ready, spreading out around Makena's hut. "The back door," Jabari hissed, grabbing Amina's arm. "Through the garden. There's a path that leads to the sacred caves." "What about Makena?" Amina protested as the old woman remained seated, calmly grinding her millet. "I'll delay them," Makena said. "Go, now." The last glimpse Amina had of Makena was of the old woman opening her front door, offering a calabash of fresh milk to the warriors as if they were expected guests. What followed was a desperate chase through the bush. Amina and Jabari fled deeper into the wilderness, using animal trails and dry riverbeds to mask their tracks. Behind them, they could hear shouts and the occasional blast from signal horns. "They're not even pretending anymore," Jabari panted as they scrambled up a steep incline. "The chief must be desperate." The shadows of the forest grew longer as Amina and Jabari pressed on, their breaths shallow and hurried. Every rustle in the underbrush made them flinch, but they couldn't afford to stop. Somewhere behind them, the signal horns blared again, closer this time. "We can't keep running forever," Amina whispered, her voice taut with fear and determination. "But where can we hide?" Jabari glanced around, his eyes scanning the dense foliage. "There's only one place they won't dare follow." Amina glanced back, her sharp eyes catching movement far below, a shadow darting through the underbrush, too fast and deliberate to be an animal. Her heart sank. "We can't outrun them forever," she whispered. Jabari's expression darkened, but he nodded. "We don't need forever, just long enough to reach the gorge." Amina hesitated. "You think that's still safe?" "It has to be." They pressed on, the terrain growing harsher with each step. The signal horns sounded closer now, echoing through the trees. Amina's lungs burned, her legs trembling as they crested another hill. And then they saw it. The gorge stretched out before them like a jagged wound in the earth, the far side shrouded in mist. "Do we jump?" Jabari asked, his voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. But before Amina could answer, a chilling sound stopped them both in their tracks, a low growl, deep and guttural, coming from somewhere ahead. "Now, my friends." What do you think lies waiting for them in the mist? And could they escape both the hunters behind them and the unknown dangers ahead? Find out in part 2 of this story, coming soon. Be so blessed.